welcome into this episode of Supernovas Unlimited. I'm Avarie Howard, joined by Geoff Exstrom, and today joining us is Thomas Robson, one of the stars behind the scenes on the coaching staff. We're excited to have you today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so for everyone not familiar, getting to know this team through this podcast, give us a little kind of snapshot of what your role is within the Supernovas program.
Yeah, so I'm one of the assistant coaches, and my specialty is technical coordinator. So I'm kind of the nerd behind the scenes that does the stat stuff, analyzing everything from attack efficiency, our rotations, each and every player, day in, day out during practice, and then during matches as well.
What was it about this position, not only just position, but that got you into volleyball to begin with, that got you to where you are right now?
Yeah, so my sisters were big into getting me into the sport of volleyball from a young age. Not very common that guys go into volleyball, especially not in first or second grade. So volleyball's kind of been revolving around my life. And I did a stint for a year with Wisconsin as volunteer assistant. And one day I was just texting Danielle Hart, and jokingly I said, "Oh, hey, if Omaha ever has a position, let me know. I'd definitely be interested." And she actually called me back the next day and was like, "Hey, there's a technical coordinator position available, and I think you'd be really good at it." So she got me in contact with the Supernovas, and from there we got here, so can't complain much.
Thomas, how old are you?
I'm 23, so I'm very young.
God, I thought you were older than that. So a 23-year-old assistant coach for the Omaha Supernovas, part of the but professional league in the United States. Do you think you ever would have been that so early in your career?
No. I mean, I didn't think there was going to be professional volleyball in general to begin with this early, especially in my career. But just kind of given the opportunity of something that I was very adamant about in college was pushing a work ethic of never saying no to opportunity. So I would work. I started as actually a practice player. One player went down at the university that I was at, and then I went to be a manager. From there, I went to be a student assistant, into a full-time assistant. And so just kind of always taking those opportunities at hand and really giving 110% effort all the time. So I'd like to think my work kind of ethic did get me here, but also your stars have to align, especially for an opportunity as good as this is.
Yeah, and I mean, where does that confidence come from to coach these players? Because, I mean, some of these players, like Betty, 22 years of experience. I mean, obviously she's older and all that. So it's not like you're just there saying, "Oh, hey, Bird," she said, and blah, blah, blah. You're like coaching. So where does that confidence come from to just be able to coach like that? Because that's, at least it's pretty intimidating.
Yeah, it is. Right away in the Wisconsin gym, somebody that really helped me get acclimated was Anne-Marie Hickey. She's their technical delegate, third assistant. And right away she was like, there's going to be times where you have to make big calls, whether that's in practice, being a line judge, or reffing, or things you see on the stats. She was like, you got to go confidently. If you don't go confidently and you start to hesitate, the players will eat you alive. And so really taking that mentality into every day at practice, and wherever I'm at, representing, whether it's a university or a sports team or franchise, I should say, that's kind of what's built this confidence. And then having a relationship with the players. If they don't trust you and what you're doing, you're not going to get anywhere. So you really have to build a trust and a bond with them. And that's something, luckily, my personality does and helps me with a little bit, being outgoing. So just building early on relationships and just knowing, hey, I got your back. I'm here to win just as much as you are. We're not going to lead you astray.
Yeah, when you reflect on those early opportunities for you, whether it was being, a grad assistant or a manager, or a student assistant, all those kind of things, what do you feel like you were learning piece by piece, even before maybe getting to the Wisconsin and hearing that kind of information that you're like, okay, I'm learning from this person. I kind of like a little bit of that, or I like what I'm hearing from this person. How do you kind of add that to your just coaching repertoire over time?
Yeah, that's been huge. Oddly enough, you learn more about what you don't want to do in certain cases than necessarily what you do want to do. But I remember traveling with my first team to nationals. This was as a student assistant. Really got along with the head coach. He mentored me a lot. But early on, there was an assistant, and she told me, "Oh, what do you want to do after school?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a volleyball coach. Pretty adamant, I want to be in volleyball. I'm going to be a coach. Hopefully someday head coach. That just has kind of been in the path for me. And I remember her being like, you should probably switch. There's no money in volleyball. Very early on. And to me, it was in such a small knit community of volleyball for somebody to say that almost took a drive for me of like, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, I will be successful in volleyball. Money doesn't necessarily matter, but I'm going to prove to you that you can have a career in volleyball. And it's not that uncommon. And depending on your work ethic, you can be there. So definitely in certain instances like that of taking things and having it propel you for your future. You
also, like you mentioned earlier, got to be a part of the Wisconsin program, obviously a very decorated program. How much did you learn in that time, and how cool was it to kind of be literally firsthand to the success that they have there and being able to see really what makes that a well-oiled machine?
Yeah. I mean, it's no joke there. It's 100-hour weeks you're putting in, day out, no off days. But to really see what it takes to be at the top and not only get to the top, but to stay at the top, and how much pressure is behind a program like that, it's been really cool. I think that also sparks a little bit more of a drive, especially as we build this league in general, of being like, what do you guys need? All hands on deck. How can I help not only our team, but how can we help the league succeed at the highest level? So that was really cool. And I mean, a year working with that program is like 12 years experience somewhere else. I mean, it is really just fun to be a part of.
Yeah, and I mean, Thomas, I want to touch upon your time here in Omaha. You have, just from a distance, a really unique relationship with Bird. And one example I'll say is our latest road trip to Atlanta. We're in the Georgia Tech's gym. I'm up on the bleachers watching you guys get ready, put on the music, and then I see you two just like dancing like crazy in the corner. Like, I've never seen like a head coach just go to like just dance like that. And I mean,
if she plays a song, I'll do it.
So can you just describe the relationship you have with Bird, and how has that enabled you to like really coach this team and be confident in what you're doing?
Yeah. I think a lot of that stems from the connection we had early on. What we've known each other maybe a month and a half, 2 months, somewhere around there, and it feels like 5 years. I mean, we just instantly, kind of a spark of connection, knew that this was going to be good chemistry, good energy in the gym. And then also from a standpoint of her being able to trust somebody so young. Like, it's not easy, especially getting thrown into a head coach position, to then have to trust a 23-year-old to make decisions. And so kind of the confidence and trust that she gives me really helps propel that relationship.
Now, are you as big a fan of the Golden Nugget as her, though?
Ooh, I actually am. Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes, that's one of our bonds, the Golden Nugget. We're excited for May, let's say that.
Well, I was going to talk about how your experience in college translates to now what you're doing. And you talk about so much of the having to have confidence and having those relationships, but how has like the literal work aspect of what you do, how did that translate when you look into a week in your life, a day in your life, getting ready for a game? What does that look like for, just everyone that's listening that doesn't live a week in your life?
Yeah. Practices, usually my job's recording the practices, coaching in practice. As soon as practice is done, it's downloading all that video, getting it up to our site so our girls are able to watch and break down that video on their own, and then coding the stats. So we use a software, and every attack combination, every contact, all has a separate code to it. It's pretty unique and interesting. It's kind of addicting once you get the hang of it to just want to keep going with it. So from there, I'll usually code the practice. We'll break it down as a staff in a staff meeting, and that'll kind of be a week when we're not heavy in games. And then leading up to it, it's breaking down film, clipping it, doing our team scout, and downloading like their actual scout sheets, printing them off for them, all that, and then running film. So we'll run film 2 days in advance, and then obviously on game day, and then in matches, I'm the iPad kid. Yeah. So I get the timeouts, the challenges, which we take a lot of pride in Omaha, is winning our challenges. Mm-hmm. That's something that's a fun little game kind of for us to do, and then as well as substitutions.
Yeah. You talked about earlier, having those relationships with the players and being at the age you are and having to get to coach these players that have so much experience. But on the flip side, how much do you feel like you've learned from them in return, even in just this short period of time?
I actually think being a younger coach gives me an advantage in that sense that a lot of people oversee. They don't realize when you are building those relationships, you're closer to being in those players' shoes, especially nowadays with social media and all that. And they've got NIL and all this other stuff surrounding it, irregardless of just volleyball. I got you, Bird. So me being able to be so close in age to some of them and being able to take their perspective and kind of turn that into being an adaptable coach has been really important. And again, I do think that's an advantage that I have for being a younger coach.
And so quickly coming from a college game, I know we've talked to the girls about this a little bit. They said they can see some of the differences between the college game to the professional game, whether they've been in the States, they've been overseas. For you, what does that look like? You firsthand in the college experience, now you're in the coaching role professionally. How has that game looked different through the coach's eyes for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a faster paced game. Something I really do like is that initially, I think in the beginning of the season, making changes, we were a little worried about sometimes in college they don't prepare. Not every single player on your team is going to prepare 100% to get thrown into a game. But here they take their job very serious, and that's all they have to think about. They don't have school on top of it or anything like that. And so making substitutions quicker, and you can put anybody in and they're going to jump in, know their role right away. So that's been a really cool change. And then it's just, faster paced game. And with our Bolt 6, I got to give a shout out to our Bolt 6 technology. The laser replays and not having to rely on line judges and human error for some of these important calls has been a game changer, and how quick they can come up with the replays and posting them up on the video board. Yeah. It just adds an excitement to the professional game that you don't necessarily get in the college game.
Yeah.
Thomas, I have a bit of a nitty-gritty question. So, and from a coaching perspective. So, I have an assumption that, in general, obviously there's different parts of the country, different schools that train players or clubs different ways. But in general, I assume that American players are trained a certain way, while other players from other countries are trained a different way. So for Betty, she's trained a little differently in Dominican Republic. Nati trained a little differently in Puerto Rico. Are you seeing those differences as you're continuing to coach these players?
Yeah, you see it a little bit more early on in training camp, and then once you get to your franchise's kind of system, and you start working out how you want to run systematically, then you see it a little bit less, but you definitely can tell in certain aspects of how people play. The advantage for Omaha that we have is we have a lot of veterans, so they've played a lot overseas, so they've kind of been plugged into a new system and having to adjust quickly. So you don't see it necessarily as much from us, but I think if there was a younger international player that you were to get, it would be a little bit different in how you transition into the system. Okay.
Early in the season, the girls have been speaking so much about just the way this group has connected and how much the relationships are so important early on, because there was no groundwork, there was no culture. It was like, figure it out, do it yourself. And as much as I think we've seen the group kind of do it on their own, how have you guys observed it from a coaching standpoint? Because I think we get to see you guys on the bench during games and you guys just kind of smile and laugh with them. You guys are just part of this team, and they're the fun aspect that they have too. But what did you guys see from a coaching standpoint that's made this group pretty unique?
Yeah, coaching at the professional level is more like being a facilitator. Like, if you're demanding a lot from your athletes and not willing to compromise, they're not going to reciprocate with you. So really being able to just kind of facilitate to what their needs are. I mean, there's some days some people can't go as hard because they need longer days to recover than others. And then at the end of the day, it's volleyball. You're getting paid to play a sport and to help build kind of a legacy in the U.S., hopefully, with our league. And so not putting too much pressure into it and just kind of adding kind of a sense of fun to it. So I know Bird and I have our clipboard. We take a lot of notes from what we say in matches during that. But again, it's just keeping everything light and adding a certain element of fun, although still stressful because it's volleyball.
Yeah. We talked about also the growth of this league. You kind of mentioned that a little bit, and hopefully where this league can go. When you see what is being built, piece by piece in Omaha, what's made I mean, I think everyone knows that in the state of Nebraska, it's in a big deal. But to see what the city and the state have done to rally around this team so early, what makes coaching in this city with this group so special so far?
Yeah, I mean, there's no place like Nebraska, and I'm from Wisconsin, so
wow.
So
write that down.
Yeah, there is no place like Nebraska for volleyball. I will admit that.
Okay.
But the fan support and honestly the level of knowledge that the fans have goes so far above and beyond other places. So you're not teaching, oh, they're passing, they're doing this. They actually know the game, understand the system. There's pros and cons to that in case your team's not producing well enough. Yeah. But as well as just the local community coming out and supporting us. We were just at the Omaha Zoo. They gave us background tour of different exhibits. And afterwards, we found out our guide was a huge Supernovas fan that went to games. Had we known prior, we could have got him a bucket hat right away. That's on us. But it's really cool to see just people you wouldn't expect that really have gravitated towards the sport and are becoming super fans or fans for life of the Omaha Supernovas. Has been cool.
Yeah, when we had Nazi on last week, she was talking about how, last summer they were having to go tell everyone, like, this is what we are. This is who we'll be. We're professional volleyball players. To see what it's transformed into now, and the girls were saying earlier, we'll go places and we get recognized and stuff like that. To see the early growth of this league and what you guys think it can become, just how exciting has that been and maybe how much of the responsibility is on your guys' shoulders as coaches to make sure some of the special stuff that's happened in year one, year two has to be even better.
Yeah. I mean, building on year one is always important, but then also for everybody involved, not just the coaches, the players, the support staff, but everybody from front office, just kind of taking a moment to realize how special it truly is. Yes, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect right away on your first year. Honestly, it should never be perfect. You should always find ways to build on that and kind of stretch the envelope there. But just taking a moment to realize, like, at the end of the day, there's a product on the court, and there's fans in the stands, and there's been a lot of talk about I've had a lot of family and friends talk about wanting to come to this championship weekend in Omaha. So just looking back at that and taking an appreciation for everything that's happened this year alone. And then obviously, how can we build and be better next year?
Yeah, and we talk about that product on the court and looking for the championships here. For you, how have you seen this team from match number 1 in January to where we are now in April just grow together from, like you said, the product that's happening on the court?
Yeah. Road trips are huge for that. You build a bond right away, especially on the bus rides to and from. Our girls have they're learning new games to play every road trip. That's been fun. You'll have to ask Jazz about that. But honestly, I would just say kind of building a sense of grit in our gym and holding each other accountable. I think some of our veteran leaders early on kind of took some rookies under their wing to really help them and train them about what pro is. But after about second week, it's, hey, you're not a rookie anymore. You might see the court. You got to be just as professional and act like you have the same amount of experience as some of these veterans. So definitely seeing the growth, especially in some of our younger players, and confidence that they have when they step out on the court.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today. We're excited now to talk to Jazz a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Thomas.
And now we're back, joined by Sydney Hilley and Sophie Davis. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to have you guys. Can you guys believe there's 8 regular season matches left in the season right now?
No, I mean, it's really flown by, actually. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you guys feel like it's gone by really quickly, or do you feel like it's been like a really long time since you found out this league was going to be a thing until where you guys are today?
I think it's a mix. Like, if you look back to even mini camp or training camp, that feels like it was years ago, forever ago. But if you tell me we only have 8 regular season matches left, I'm like, wow, that went pretty fast. So I feel like it's a mix.
I'd agree, yeah. I feel like when I first got here, our schedule was so packed with training camp, and it was everything was so new. So everything felt, I don't know, it was kind of going by fast, but not so fast. And then it's already April. I don't even know what day it is, mid-April maybe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's almost over. It's like a month left. And I'm like, this is actually crazy.
Yeah. You got to be a part of the draft process, the first one this league's ever seen. What was that whole thing like for you?
Pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, you don't really know what to expect. No one really did. There wasn't like you look at the WNBA draft, obviously the WNBA has been, I don't know how long they've been, but definitely longer than one season. So, yeah, it was just, everything was so new that I didn't know what to expect. And I was just like sitting around, like they said it started at 10. So I just like sat on the couch at 10 and I was like, okay, well, if I get a call, like cool.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours go by. I'm like, dang, it's probably over by now, right? I'm like, I didn't get a call, whatever. And then so like I'm driving to lunch and then I get a call while I'm driving. And I was like, and I picked it up and it was Bird calling and FaceTiming me. And I was like, hello? And she was like, you just got drafted. And I'm like, yeah, thank you so much. Like I didn't really know what to say. All I said was thank you like 50 times, probably way overdue, but like it was just a lot. But it was awesome. I mean, I'm so grateful that I even got drafted. So it was awesome.
Knowing that was an opportunity for you following your college career, like what were the conversations kind of like leading up into that moment?
Honestly, it wasn't really, we didn't really talk about it. Like I knew the PVF was a thing, but I didn't know that much about it. No one really did. So information kind of came out every week. And so as the season went on, by like almost towards the end of season, I think it started to get more like, oh, like, you know, this team, like once the season actually ended was when you could, I guess you could talk to people. So like Bird was one of the first coaches that I talked to. And then just like 2 other teams I talked to, but then you don't really know what's going to happen. So then I ended up getting drafted. So that's great.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I didn't not expect it, but I also didn't expect it.
Right.
Also. So yeah.
And for you, Sydney, you're kind of in a different boat, but where were you? What was the process like for you when you found out Omaha was going to be your team?
Yeah, I mean, I was super excited. If there wasn't a pro league in the U.S., I mean, I'd probably be retired by now. I tried a little bit in Turkey and Puerto Rico, and I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. I tried it, but I was ready to kind of transition into my career of being a scientist, so I still do that now. But once the leagues in the U.S. started popping up, it's like, okay, this is the best of both worlds. I get to keep my job and play professional volleyball in the United States. And I was so excited it was Omaha. I mean, it's the city closest to my house, so my parents have been able to come to a bunch of games, and just playing at Nebraska in college, I knew how much the people like cared about their team and loved volleyball. And I think that really showed for like even our first match, like when the fans didn't really know who we were, like they showed out and they stayed all 5 sets and they were there till the end, and they just really care. And you go out in public and you're like recognized by people like, hey, you're a supernova. It's really cool. So I'm really grateful to be in Omaha.
Before we move past the volleyball thing, can we go back to the scientist thing real fast? Can you tell us a bit more about what that looks like for you? Yeah,
so in college, my degree was genetics, and then my master's is in biotechnology, and I wanted to go into cancer research. But playing volleyball, it's really difficult to be in a lab and play volleyball full time. So right now I'm at a medical diagnostics company, and it's remote. So I'm able to do both, but we make like immunoassay tests that diagnose different diseases. So it's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, how cool to do both of those things.
Yeah, it's best of both worlds for sure.
Well, we kind of got to this last week with the other girls as well, and I want to take you guys back a little bit. Was volleyball always the sport for you guys, or how did the journey to getting to where you are today begin?
You should start.
Okay. I mean, I played like all the sports when I was growing up. My dad, he played basketball in college, and so we grew up playing basketball, and he was our coach for that. And then my mom played volleyball in college, so we also had that. I kind of thought I was going to be a basketball player, honestly. And then my mom, she wanted me to try volleyball, and she said, hey, we're going to go to this club, and you're going to try out, and if you make the team, I'll buy you a new pair of shoes. And I was like, all right. This is it. Like, I'm going all in. And I ended up making the team. I was the youngest one on the team. I mean, now they have teams that are young as like 8s and 9s for club, but I think it was a 12s team, and I was 9 or 10, and so I was the youngest one, and I ended up making the team. And I mean, I was the smallest one. They said, hey, you're going to be a setter. And that is how I got this position that I'm still playing now.
Somewhat similar, but I played all the sports growing up, like tennis from like 3 to 9. Then I went to soccer because I kind of wanted to play a team sport. After you play tennis, you're like, it's so individual that I wanted like friends around me while
Aren't
I
you
played.
really into golf right now?
Yeah,
That's like the most.
but I never go alone though.
Yeah.
It's more like social. But yeah, it's also a sport that you can like work on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, so it's nice. But I never played golf growing up though. I thought it was the most boring sport. But it's actually so fun. But then I played basketball, and I also thought I was going to be a basketball player just because like I was always tall. So basketball was just kind of like in the cards. And then I also moved around like through South America, like Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. So I played like soccer and then basketball in Mexico. And then we moved back to the U.S. I'm from Florida. And so we moved to Florida, and I started playing basketball, but then my mom found it to be a little too aggressive, and I'm not really aggressive. So she was like, you should try volleyball. And I was like, no, like it looks boring. And she was like, kind of same thing. She was like, if you try one like camp, you'll never have to do it again. If you hate it, you'll never do it again. So I was like, fine. So I like went, and it was a setting camp, and I still ended up liking it. I thought it was fun. And it was like with my high school, and I like joined the JV. I was 15, I think, when I started playing, either late 14 or 15. And so I was a freshman, and I played JV for a season. And then by the end of my sophomore year, I joined like club. I think it was like 16s. And I made, and 100 girls tried out. And I remember this specifically because I left there, like I had barely any experience, and I left and I was like crying. I was like, that was so horrible. Like, I'm never going to make the team. Like I was crying the whole way home with my mom. And then we get back to the house and we get a call from the head coach, and she was like, we see a lot of potential. We're going to take her. I was like, yeah. So then by the end of the season, I ended up with a few offers, and then I committed to college at JMU beginning of my junior year. So yeah. Which was cool. I think it was a year and a half maybe after starting playing. So that was pretty cool.
It's impressive.
Thanks, Sid.
Well, I have a hard-hitting question for both of you. I want to dive more into, you guys ran with your success into college. You guys starring roles for both of your teams, breaking records, All-American status. And you both now are relatively young in your professional careers. And so you went from the star, All-American record holders, transitioning into a new role with a new team and a new league and everything. How has that been changing and getting into a new role with the team after being maybe at the front of the team for so long, like in your college careers? How has that adjustment been for both of you?
Yeah, for both of us, it's probably one of the first times that we're on the bench. And honestly, going into a game, I don't know whether I'm starting, whether I'm not going to play at all, whether I'm going to be pulled in the first, second, third, fourth. You never know. And you just got to be ready for everything. And I think one of the great things about this team is just how deep we are. And I think that shows at all of our practices that any single one of these people could be out on the court and we could win a match. But in professional volleyball, it's just if you're not performing, or if the coach needs something else, they're going to make switches. So it's been really cool to be alongside Nati, just because she's someone who has so much experience, and she's played in the Olympics, and she's one of the best in the world. So being able to train with her every single day and watch her play, when she's playing, I'm never mad that it's not me. I'm like, okay, I love Nati, want her to do well. And so we have a really good relationship, which makes it a lot easier. No one loves being on the bench, but when you have that love for the person who's in your position and for your team, you just want whatever's best for your team to help them win. And so that's what I'm doing. You can only control what you can control. Come in every single day, work as hard as you can, have a good attitude. And if you play, you play. And if you don't, you don't.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I'm learning so much from Tori and Creed that it's I don't know. I'm still having such a great time, and I really wouldn't trade it. Obviously, you're competitive, you want to play, but I think they fully deserve it, and I think I just get to watch and learn from them. And if they put me in whenever, I'm ready. But I'm just really happy to just be here and surrounded by these amazing athletes and just learning every day. And playing with amazing setters is really, really awesome.
Thanks, so.
Like you mentioned, like you said, one of the best in the world. Like when that comes out of your mouth, like do you guys feel like you realize that every day when you have such a new group together, but there's so much experience and talent all in the same place, just the backgrounds, and like you said, we have Olympic setters and Olympic players on this team. Just what is that like for you guys, and what do you feel like the biggest thing you've picked up on so quickly?
I think it's honestly like having a bunch of coaches on the court with you. Like when you have Betty and you have Nati and you have Tori and you've had people who have been playing for forever, you just really trust that they know the game and they're sharing their knowledge and they're so open with it that they teach you so much just by playing with them. And it feels like it's you with a bunch of coaches who know so much about the game out on the court together. And I think that's what helps us learn so quickly and really bond with one another. Like it never feels like it's like, oh, like they're above us or anything. We're all in it together and we're just trying to help each other get better.
Yeah, that's funny that you actually asked that, because today we were like standing in the huddle. And I was standing next to Cree and I think Betty. And I was just like listening to the coaches, but then I like looked over and I was like, wow, like thinking back where I was like last year or whatever, it's like, wow, like I really am next to them. Like this is really cool. So sometimes I have those moments where I'm like, this is a really cool experience that I get to have, and like just taking it all in and trying to just make the most of it, really.
You're having a moment.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, that's Betty.
That's Betty.
It's really cool.
We'll kind of dive into just this team and stuff, but I want to not move too fast past your guys' collegiate careers too, because you guys chose two different schools, but also like we mentioned, you guys had great numbers and great careers there. I'll start with you, Sydney, but choosing Wisconsin, obviously a decorated program, but you got to be a part of something super special there. Guys, kind of take us through why Wisconsin and then just the amazing run you guys had in that 2021 season.
Yeah, I think the first offer I had was in 8th grade from the University of Minnesota. And growing up, that was kind of my dream school just because I went to a bunch of games and my grandpa and my uncle, they played baseball for the Gophers. We were huge fans. And so that was really hard for me to have to make the decision between Minnesota and Wisconsin. Wisconsin was actually my first phone call, like with a coach. So me and Kelly, like, I don't know, we talked for 4.5 years before I even got to Wisconsin. But it was really close between those two. And Wisconsin, they do this thing where if they get a recruit or a commit, Kelly tweets on Twitter. He says bingo, and that just means someone committed. And eventually I had the offer from Wisconsin for a decent amount of time, like 6 months or something like that. And he said, hey, we're going to offer another setter, and whoever takes it first gets it. Like, we need this spot filled. And he tweeted bingo, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I just lost my spot. And that's in that moment, like I knew that's what I wanted when I thought it was gone. And so I called him up and I was like, hey, like, did someone commit? He was like, no, it was someone else. And I was like, okay, I'm coming to Wisconsin. And trying to get like my grandpa and my uncle to be Wisconsin fans. It took a while. They started out just wearing plain red, but you know, they got to be Badger fans after that. But I think it was like the best decision I've ever made. I think going there taught me so much about volleyball, but also just about how to be a successful person in life. Like Kelly taught us so much about just confidence and how to deal with confrontation and how to be a leader. And so I think that those are skills that I'm going to use every single day throughout my life. But I mean, the culture that they have there, like it's bonding. Like every single person I played with, like I'm going to be lifelong friends with. And getting to win the first national championship in program history, like after putting in, that was my 5th year. So after putting in 5 years was absolutely incredible. And like, I will never forget that. And I feel like that is going to be like one of my top moments for a really long time.
For sure. I can imagine going into that tournament and even just some of those last games, knowing this is the last time I put this jersey on, but I could be a national champion. How do you like weigh those emotions?
Yeah, I think you have to go into it just knowing that you're so prepared. I mean, we were playing against some really good teams, and honestly, like the semis was in 5, the finals was in 5. Like it could have gone either way. And I mean, you got to go into it saying you have no regrets with how you prepared. And I think that throughout my career, and especially senior year, like just every decision you make is like, is this going to help me win a national championship? Because you want it so bad. And so like, even if we didn't win, I don't think there would have been any of us that said we could have done something more. Like, I think that we put our all into it, and it's just kind of like the dream ending. Like, for a bunch of the seniors who stayed that 5th year, getting to end on a national championship, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better experience than that. So, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was just go in, trust that you've put in all the work, trust your team, trust your training, and then thankfully it turned out in our favor.
Yeah, and I mean, Sydney, run of success is defined by wins. What I'm curious is, being that program and being mentored by Kelly, how did you learn to win?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, but I think that Kelly and the other coaches, they just ingrain a culture that details matter. So all the little things matter. I mean, things you don't think that would be a big deal, like whether it's sleep, nutrition, hydration, whether it's you get a free ball and you're passing it 5 feet off the net, or are you making that perfect? It's just those little details that everyone has to do their own job and be completely bought into the team goal in order for it to work. So I think he did a really good job of just laying out our mission and then finding players and developing a culture that it was team first always. And I think that was the biggest thing.
How do you see the things you learned into now playing for the Supernovas and navigating a first-year league and going against teams that are maybe a little more evened, and as you can see that in the standings? So where are you seeing those lessons into you playing for the Supernovas now?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, like going into Wisconsin, they had already had such a good culture built, and you come into the first year of a professional league, the first time this team has existed, and there's no culture. Like, you have to set it yourselves. So I think that's something that we've been trying to create this whole time, and just how are we going to be throughout this season, and what values are we going to really hold true. And I think that that's been part of the journey, is just like getting everyone to be bought into what this team could be. And I think it is a little similar to like playing in the Big Ten. Like, any team you play, if you don't bring your A game, you could lose. And I mean, that's the same with this league. Doesn't matter if they're the top team or the bottom team in the standings, like anyone is good enough to beat you on any given day. And so I think that we've learned that we have to prep the same way no matter who we're playing. We need to watch as much film on whatever team as we do the top team, and just like go into every game knowing that we got to play our best. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and Sophie, for you, James Madison, how did you get there? What led you there? And then a little bit about your career there.
JMU was one of my last offers, but the best one. I went to visit, I want to say it was like end of July. And I was like, I think I was 16. And we went up there, my mom and I, and we just did like a little visit. And before the visit started, like they had offered like on the spot, and I was like already ready to like say yes. And I like looked at my mom, and she was like you have to weigh your options. And I was like, so I speak Portuguese. So we were able to, she was like, no, not yet. And I was like, no, but I really want to. And she's like, not yet. And I just knew, like the second I got there, it's a feeling that you get. And so the rest of the tour, I was so like happy, so giddy, because I already, like, I felt such great, like a connection already. And I absolutely loved the coaches. So we did the whole tour, and then about a month later, as I said, I already knew, so I was just waiting till my mom was like, okay, fine, like, go. So I called, the first day that you're allowed to call coaches was, at the time, it was September 1st, so I called on September 1st, and I was like, I would love to commit to JMU. And then so fast forward, I think it was 2 years or whatever, I got there. I ended up playing as a freshman and playing ever since then, and I stayed my 5th year. And obviously, I just had the best time. Yeah.
So you said you'd started volleyball like 14, and then you're getting offers by 16. Was that kind of like a whirlwind of a time for you, being like, I just started this sport and now like, holy cow, what's going on?
Yeah. And I asked Lauren, I was like, because she came to my court. JMU was like a dream school kind of for me. It kind of had everything I wanted in one school. So I emailed them, you know how you email all these coaches. So I was like, I'll be on this court, on this tournament. Like, love if you could stop by. And so she literally, I remember the moment, because I was like, I was at the net and I saw her, and she like stood for one ball. Like, I don't think I even touched the ball. And then she left, and I was like, there goes my shot. Oh.
Shoot.
And then she still invited me to the campus. They offered and whatever. And I was like, so later on, I was like, so what was it? Because you didn't watch me play. And she was like, I saw the potential. I'm like, wow, potential really got me far. The height and the potential, I guess. So, yeah. I don't remember what the question was.
That's okay. You did great. You did great. James Madison, though, why was it kind of your dream school? Like, why was it a place you were looking up to?
I think, first of all, the culture like was one of the first things that it was very similar. When you were speaking, I was like, wow, we had really similar culture-wise colleges. But just the culture that Lauren, my head coach, she brings to the school, like she just... it's something that we value even more than like the volleyball. It's like, how do we treat each other? Like just team first, like everything like that. Like, and her, like one of her first few things she said was, like if you leave here, become a better person, not player, but better person. Like I'm thrilled. Like I'm so happy.
Kelly said the exact same.
Yeah, they must be friends because seriously, I think they share they literally preach the same things. So yeah, so all the culture stuff really drew me to there because I obviously want to, improve my volleyball, but I think I grew so much more as a person there, and I left so much more, I don't know, like not mature, but obviously you mature in college, but just as a person in general, like I feel like I learned so much, and I wouldn't have picked another school. I loved JMU.
Yeah. You guys both stayed for an extra year, and that extra year was crucial for both of you. You guys left your universities with record-setting numbers. You think if you would have told the younger version of yourself leaving a fifth year, I just set the assist record, I have the highest hitting percentage, like what do you think that version of yourself would have thought of that statement?
Yeah, I think I would have thought it was crazy, but I probably would have said like, hey, that was unfair. You got a bonus year for the stats, but some other people probably say that too. But, the individual stats, honestly, like I could care less. I care more about what we accomplish as a team and just the national championship, I think that's what I put my all into. And like if the stats are there, the stats are there,
Yeah. I think I honestly didn't really realize until they were like, oh, you just broke this record, you're second place in this, and all-time blocks. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, how many more till like first? And, oh, 6 more. Okay, so I have 4 games left. Maybe it'll happen, So it wasn't really like a goal, but it was like, I had that fifth year, so, oh, well, I'm happy. But yeah, I'm just really happy with like the relationships that I left JMU with, like my teammates. These are friendships that we talk still. It's like I'm still there. Like we talk almost every day, and like my best friends are on the team, and I'm just so grateful for JMU.
Yeah, and Sophie, going to your season right now, you have the unique perspective of being an active roster player, while also have been a practice player. For fans, like obviously first-year league, can you maybe give fans a little insight on what's that difference of being that practice player versus on the active roster?
Honestly, it's very similar. I was just as bought in because there's always a just in case, right? Like injuries happen, and thankfully none have happened to middles. But so it was also always with the mindset of, stay on top of your game, like always give your best. But the main difference, is just the pay. Yeah. So I'm still just as, bought in, now more, maybe a little bit, because there's actually a chance I put on a jersey. So that's a big difference. Yeah. That's pretty cool. I've never had a jersey that has my last name on it. So that was cool. That was probably one of the main differences. But yeah, no one, I don't know. It's very, just the pay and the jersey.
There you go.
That's the difference.
Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but you guys are going to be a part of being the first year of this league. And I think everyone would agree from the first match to where it is now. How would you guys say the play has just evolved?
I think the level of play has been like pretty high from the start, but I think now it's just consistently high. Like every single game you see, like no one's getting swept really. And it's like 2 points to decide a set, and like anyone can beat anyone. So I think that's pretty exciting, is that the level of play is really high and every team is capable of winning. So I think that makes it really exciting going into any game, knowing that you have to play your best, otherwise you will lose.
Agreed. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better.
And for you guys, I'm sure, but there's probably many girls across the net that you either grew up with, played with, now played against. It's been kind of cool to see everyone now, all in the U.S. and getting to play together or against each other.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I almost know everyone at this point. It's like if I hadn't played against them in college, I played against them in something in the USA gym or whatever it may be. But I feel like I'm friends with everybody. So I'm like going through the line like, hey, good luck, Morgan. Hey, good luck, Allie. Like I know every single person on the team. And it's just really cool that everyone's getting this opportunity. And I think more than anything, everyone here wants this league to succeed and to be able to continue playing high-level professional volleyball in the United States.
Yeah, for sure. And you just said that, I think everyone wants to see this league succeed. From what you guys have seen from year one, what do you just think the possibilities are for the way this game can grow?
I mean, I think just how many fans have showed up to this first year and how many people are so excited to be watching. I think that it just has so much potential to grow. And I know that next year, new cities will come in, but I feel like there's the potential to really expand, to get on national television, to get a lot of viewership and just grow the game. And I think that we're definitely on the right path for that.
You guys do have a pretty unique team too, that I think we mentioned this last week, that no matter where you guys are, I'm not on the road with you guys, unfortunately, but I think I can say pretty confidently that there's no team out there that's kind of bonded quite like this team has in terms of how much fun you guys have, especially in this first year. And I know Nati last week said it just kind of happened organically, which I think is pretty cool, but what makes this team so special to be a part of, just in terms of how much fun this team has?
Go ahead.
I think everyone's just really friendly. I just think that everyone's willing to
Include everyone?
Yeah, everyone just wants to hang out with each other, and genuinely, it's not like everyone's forced to hang out, and we just find things in common, and
I asked Sophie to answer because she's always doing something, whether it's Topgolf or pickleball or whatever it may be. She's always doing something with people, and sometimes I'm the lame one who has to go work. But the people, they genuinely do want to hang out with each other, and it's sometimes if you don't like your teammates, you'll get done with practice and you don't have to see them. But usually people are hanging out after practice and seeing each other throughout the day. And I think that, like what Soph said, everyone's really friendly. Everyone is really just, I don't know, even people who are in different stages of life. You have Betty and Cree and Jess, they all have children and they're all moms. And yet, they're still, hanging out with 22-year-olds and, just bonding. So I think that just everyone's just happy to be here. And we really, I think we recruited some really awesome people with great personalities. And I think that we mesh really well together.
Yeah. All right. You got me curious now. Who's the best golfer and who's the best combo, best team in pickleball?
Okay. I think Sid and I are really good together at pickleball. We're undefeated so far.
We haven't played that many games, but yes, 3 games. We haven't lost.
But we haven't lost, and that says a lot. Because I think everyone else, has one loss. So, that makes us
and Sophie's definitely the best golfer. I don't think she would say it herself, but
I think I golf the most. And so I don't know if that makes me the best, but I do go once a day. Yeah, it's kind of a problem.
Where are you golfing at? Where have you adventured to?
I really actually like Omaha because of how many golf courses there are. There's one everywhere I look. Every drive I'm on, I see at least one golf course. It started off with, I tried to get people to come with me because if not, it's boring alone. Yeah. So I was like, who wants to come to Topgolf? So then I got Kendall.
Tuesdays.
Yeah, so now there's Topgolf Tuesdays. But I first got Kendall involved, and she's like, oh, yeah, I just got these golf clubs. I'm like, oh, come with me. Well, let's do this. And then Maeve now does it. And Tori and Jazz, they like to come along for the ride. They like the weather. You get to be outside. So, I just make it sound really fun. Come on, let's go. And then people just tag along. And so I would say Maeve is also really good at golf. So
who's better between you and Maeve?
I don't.
Come on.
I can't answer that. Yeah, I would say I do golf more.
Oh, there's Maeve. I didn't even know she was in the room. That's why you can't answer.
Come on. She's looking right at me. But yeah, I think we're pretty similar levels. But
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys have been able to adventure.
been really
a little
fun.
bit. Yeah.
Now I know the next stream event we're gonna do Sophie versus Allison on.
Oh, that would actually be so fun. But Maeve I think Maeve has a stronger chance of winning. I'm not.
Are you just saying that because she's here, or
maybe it's what I really think?
okay?
Well, thank you guys so much for joining this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having us.